Salutations, traveler. Nero here. Do you like power? Do you like to grind and seeing increasing numbers activate neurons in your ancient reptilian brain? Welcome to Astlibra, where your power spike is a cubic curve, where killing the Demon King can be considered the early game. And don't worry, this might be a Japanese game, but you don't have to be a degenerate to enjoy this game. But before we dive in, let's take a quick look at this game's credits. That's it. Unlike other games, this game's credits are pretty short, right? The reason why is because the developer Keizo pretty much made the game on his own, with additional help once the game went from freeware to a game with an actual publisher. Imagine that. It's the year 2008. You are another Japanese salaryman grinding for minor compensation to fit in society's standards. Coming from work, you just want to relax and play your favorite genre of a game. But nothing exists and you just say, fuck it, I make my own game.
With blackjack and hookers!
What a mad lad. Gameplay. Oh, this part is chunky. Believe me, I doubted the game when I saw the screenshots on Steam. Like, what is this weird picture collection of a game with choppy movement? But people do seem to like it. There must be something to it. And just like an unsupervised toddler in a hurricane, I was blown away. The early game starts a bit rough, but it feels very intended, since your strength and progression will increase pretty fast, going from swinging a branch like 3 times in 10 seconds to this in the first few hours, and pretty much a demigod a few hours later. Do you enjoy violence? Because you better do. By participating in a lot of non-domestic violence against non-specified individuals, you fill up your ST bar. I think it stands for stamina, but it's used for magic, so I just kind of refer to it as mana. Your magic is not real magic, since you don't really throw fireballs yourself, but rather summon creatures who do the magic for you. Summon a little lizard. Summon a turtle. Summon the Dragon God King of Destruction. Summon a fanboy. The magic feels nice to use and has a lot of impact. When you activate the summon menu, the game gets paused. Usually I don't like to use magic, but in this game it felt very natural and I found myself spending most of my attribute points into magic. I think you can even play a bow build. The game gives you a fully automatic longbow later. Your permanent companion, Karen, is the reason you have magic and also gives you some neat little things if you decide to invest into them. The ability to run slightly faster, double jump, automatically picking up gold and experience force, wall hacking the map to scan for treasure chests, an infinite amount of keys as long as you have one. Getting one-shotted by a single enemy projectile and wasting 7 points. You can change these pretty much on the fly, and all of the passives have another side to them later in New Game Plus. You can unlock the passives by using and mastering weapons and armors, which is a great incentive to play with as many weapons and armors as possible and to unlock all the equipment that is unique to the chapter. And this game has a shit ton of weapons, armors and trinkets to unlock. Since the weapons don't really scale, the new weapons you can buy in the new chapter are usually an upgrade to whatever you might have gotten before. Again, until you reach the mid-game, endgame, where the power scaling just gets ridiculous. Introducing boards. Remember the funny little tree branch you get more as a joke makeshift weapon in the very first chapter? Yeah, with a singular board and this weapon, this is your best weapon now. Yeah, your god-slaying legendary two-handed weapon, barely 800 damage. Tree branch with a singular board? Now that's some real shit. And you can have up to 3 boards per weapon, armor and accessory. Another way to increase your power are the scales of Astrea, which let you put nearly every item you can find, use or craft on it. Every item has a weight to it and individual abilities attached to it, which you received once you put them on the scales. But since they are scales, you want them balanced or else you won't reap the benefits. Also, don't just put the same item on them. I did that for the first few hours until I realized that doing that cancels the effect out. By exploring the individual chapters, you will eventually find more scales. There is 1 scale per chapter after you initially found the scales. Some are a bit more hidden than others, and some are hidden behind this game's gacha. The more scales you have, the more items you can put on them. You can either do that through the most logical approach, calculating, thinking and pondering to find the optimal item weight ratio giving you the most benefits, or you just do what I did. Sort from heavy to light, put the most heavy thing on there with a nice effect, try to balance whatever weight you have to on the other side. The gacha is not randomized, but good luck finding all the small metals. If you missed any item and don't like to grind, just to have all the things at the end of the chapter, you don't have to worry too much. The game is very lenient and it lets you revisit old chapters later. Instead of struggling with the mobs, if you don't want to grind, you can breeze through them later. Collect everything you want and farm a little bit of experience and force, but you really don't have to. Let's talk a little bit about the music of the game. Now the music is fucking fantastic. It's an interesting blend of different genres, some more in line with what I expected. Some very different. And it will take a good amount of time before I forget some of these more catchy songs. Most were really enjoyable for me, except one. I can still hear it when I go to sleep. Anyways, back to gameplay. Aside from experience, material, money, defeated enemies also drop force. Every enemy has an attribute. Green slimes drop green force, fire spiders drop red force, and most women just drop darkness force. This force allows you to unlock stats in the skill tree. All the nodes here are passives with an occasional key which unlocks another branch of the tree. In this skill tree you will also unlock more summons. Should you miss force of a specific type, the game lets you convert the other force for an increased rate, and never convert holy force into anything else. Actually, never convert anything, and just like staying around in certain discords, the game teaches you eventually how to craft useful things like chocolate pies, strawberry milk, bombs. Some food can heal you, while most food will provide you with force. So if you miss just a little bit of force, get to cooking rather than converting, and eat those totally necessary portions of 10 cakes. Pretend to be your favorite mukbanger.
Papa John's Pizza!
At some point, it feels natural to craft things on the fly though. Most things you can craft are really optional, aside from maybe keys, and arguably even those are optional. I did not really enjoy the cooking because seeing pictures of nice food just pushes in the realization that my next meal is a mee noodle soup. Also, this is not a gameplay mechanic, but the game lets you cross-dress. Several characters actually throughout the story comment on how beautiful you look. Way too pretty for a boy. And once you unlock the long-haired wig and you've unlocked the dress, you can finally fulfill your femboy fantasies. After all, it takes a man to be a woman. If you are intrigued by what you already heard so far, go and play the demo on Steam. It's hard to really convey gameplay with words, so I'd rather send you off experiencing it for yourself. I will talk a little bit about the story now, so feel free to skip to this point if you want to avoid spoilers. Spoilers. Story. Arguably, the story is the weakest point of the game, according to some people in the reviews, but personally I liked it quite a lot. But I also have what some people may call a questionable taste. I kind of expected a more grounded JRPG, where we slay the Demon King, save our childhood friend. The game starts a little slow. You even get a warning that it will take a while, a 15-minute cutscene to be exact, but just like a gas pedal of an old car that got superglued, you will eventually take on speed, and then you realize you can't stop anymore. There are no brakes in this car. The village of your unnamed orphan protagonist gets attacked by demons. You get saved, but pass out. You wake up in a house. This game does not only have one character having amnesia, but features several. Tired and fatigued, you go directly back to sleep. There's also like the anime trope throughout the whole game that your character likes to sleep a lot, and it seems like sometimes our protagonist just sleeps for weeks. Did you know this game was made by a Japanese businessman craving, longing for sleep? You get to meet Karen, who is pretty much doing the talking for you, aside from being very useful in combat by providing you with summons and passives, and although some of his dialogue is pretty corny, I really liked Karen. There are some parts in the game where Karen is not with you, very short sequences, even without fighting. I really missed the bird. Not having a double jump or sprint is really obnoxious once you get too used to it. In the first chapter you find the scales of Astrea, the goddess of time, and now you are the chosen one. And when the conditions of the scales are met, they let you time travel. Naturally, you don't really grasp what that entails. Having control over time, it's a terrifying concept.
The Rubik's Cube has been solved faster and faster every year since it came out, and it won't be long before they can solve it in negative time, enabling people to travel backwards in time using a Rubik's Cube. The maker of the Rubik's Cube, Mattel, intends to use that to travel back in time to when they manufactured them, and the ones that they've already sold, they'll take those from the past, bring them into the present, so they can sell them at 100% profit.
Which leads to quite a few mid-game game overs. They're not really bad endings, I would say. Some of them are kind of bittersweet, and some might even be happier than the actual ending, but it kind of depends on your view of things. You can play it in a very episodic way, and I have the feeling that it wasn't intended to be played like that, like a one chapter per session, or you can just, no life grind it. During the story you will encounter some homies who will accompany you, usually just adding a little bit of damage like Gao, or you get someone like Kuro who gives you a barrier shield, which is very, very broken. Everyone pretty much ends up joining the Adventurer Guild, and let me tell you, Mallow, the guild leader, is a shrewd woman who abuses especially the male members who do all the dirty work for her, and with that I mean mostly Gore, because the main character most of the time just gets sent to sleep. At some point you will also get sent into the future, where you find out that the goddess Astrea was imprisoned. Yeah, humans have captured a god. She grants you a bit more control of the time-traveling aspect of the scales, with the deal being that you free her once you're strong enough. But since now you're weak and pathetic, you have to leave. In the fourth chapter you defeat the Demon King, but something feels odd. You see the demons are created from jars. You see a demon version of Annulus, and the Demon King itself is weirdly mechanical. In the fifth chapter you go to a hot spring and end up in Elysium. Elysium has some interesting enemies. It also has mechs. Over the course of the game you eventually discover that an AI from the future was sent back in the past, reversed John Connor style, not to save mankind, but to be pest control. And we humans are the pest. Ironically, it's because of that very act that the population gets so out of control. But we are entering a dangerous territory here of timeline clusterfuckery that you shouldn't really think too much about. And that is only the first mid-game plot twist. There's even a greater one. Yeah, time travel is the side note introduction twist of the game. Populous control from the future is the mid-twist. After you've defeated the machine that created Annulus, it's your task to free Goddess Astrea, but you are still too weak. This is the point where you get to revisit all the other chapters to grind, but it's also around here that the character is strong enough to revisit some of the older locations. There are 6 areas, each with one god inside, whose physical body you can kill to earn their favor, unlocking some very nice equipment for that time. If you also grind it a bit and unlock your skill tree, you also get to summon these gods. Yeah, you can just go into the fight, of course, as well without doing the side content, but it felt pretty good to do, and the fight without doing it was really hard. After you freed Astrea by destroying the Iron Maiden in the boss fight, you now have to kill Astrea. Being fed up with the humans and all that bullshit, and even imprisoning her, she wants you to help her. After a nice little cutscene of all the people you met along the way and you helped in previous chapters, of course you decide to fight her. After that she reveals her true form to you and you have to defeat her again. Now you have received the true scales of Astrea, and now you can change fate to get your happy ending. At this point you're used to seeing the end credits after each chapter, but this is the first time you get a "thank you for playing" message. This is a fake out. Don't let this message fool you. Save your game. Load your last saved game and you will see it keeps going on. This happens several times throughout the game. Yeah, every time when you see "thank you for playing the game," just save it and reload, and there's a good chance you get to do more until you reach a real definite ending. After loading, you see you're in a dream. and have to defeat the god of dreams to wake up. Defeating him sends you back in time, which pretty much starts New Game Plus. Okay, so seriously, there's like a second spoiler warning here about the second plot twist, and if you want to avoid like heavy spoilers, you should really skip this part. Anyways, welcome to New Game Plus. Very early, you will notice these weird tentacles that only you and a few select characters seem to notice. The enemies are way stronger, and after reliving the events of the earlier chapters, now with a happy ending of course, since you can change fate how you want and you have the knowledge you gained from previous sessions, you will notice a weird hooded figure in front of your home. Speaking gibberish in the beginning, it turns out this figure is a messenger, and you realize the tentacles you see are the influence of gears. But what is gears? I also don't really know if it's called gears or G's.
Code Gears. Gears. Here are many more videos on how to pronounce anime terms and names.
But who created it, and where does it come from? Do you remember your visit to Elysium in Chapter 5? It's explained there that the world stretches in 4 directions and stops at some point. Beyond those points, there's only an endless void. But why? Your world is flat. Because your world is one out of several worlds that try to escape gears, reach by catapulting themselves into the sky and protecting themselves with a barrier that is the abyss. Elysium is not the weird place in Chapter 5. Your whole known world is Elysium, with the actual planet being below. How? Why? Throughout unending conflict and evolution, a species eventually learned to overcome all obstacles. Without any enemies left and all the power that they had, they just kind of eldered themselves and the planet as well. They were really sad by this tragedy. The survivors created a new planet. They would watch for a few million years, but it would always come to the same outcome. The same conclusion was reached. One of the races would be dominating all the others and destroy themselves and the planet in their absolute dominance over time. So, the Lord put a constraint in case any species should surpass the others too much that would now occur in all of the life that they created, effectively wiping out all life on the planet and repeating the process of life, struggle and evolution again and again. This constraint is Gears. One of those races that the Lord created recently are the gods, but they learned of this constraint that was put onto them, and so they created mankind. And since mankind was created not directly by the Lord, they would not have this constraint, and a plan could be made to deal with Gears. However, Gears activated and forced the gods to flee, creating the arcs in the sky. The player character is just one out of countless protagonists, out of countless timelines, out of whom eventually one would overcome the obstacles and the grind to grow to the full potential and strength to deal with Gears. In a certain way, this is a nice meta explanation for different people playing the game, experiencing it, and even giving it an explanation for those who are content with one of the alternate endings early in the game. You travel to the actual planet, find out that this rule and evolution doesn't even get carried out by the Lord anymore. It's carried out automatically. The hooded figure is just a last remnant that helps you because the figure also started to have doubts after several million years, seeing countless life gets destroyed again and again. After you've dealt with all of that, a series of boss fights happen that I don't really want to spoil it anyway. You get an ending, but if you haven't grinded enough, you kind of get a, I wouldn't say bad ending, but kind of a sad ending. So you keep grinding for the love of your companions, give it to your girl, and you will eventually reach the good ending. Overall, I really enjoyed the story. Just like the game itself, there is more to it than I initially expected. Great story and music, and the combat is strangely addicting and satisfying. I give the game a demon god's pickaxe out of a pure white garment. Now, if you excuse me, I have some grinding to do. Thank you very much for watching until here. Stay tuned for more terrible videos in the future. And if you liked the video, don't forget, just like SCDs, sharing is caring. Have a good day.